Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy. Please excuse if I sound kind of ill today. I'm trying to focus up and get this out to you regardless. And so, today I'm talking about what it's like to play Battlefield 5 solo. Is it viable to play without a pre-organized squad? Can you successfully lone wolf? It's something that I'm seeing discussed a fair bit in the Battlefield community, and for good reason. Many people want reassurance that they will still be able to play on their own and be successful, and thus enjoy that experience. A lot of people don't always have friends available to play with, and some never do. So let's get into the issue from my perspective. And keep in mind that this is my opinion. I want to try to help and inform you guys, but I can only work with my own opinion. You may end up disagreeing with me, and that's perfectly fine. At least you've got this angle to look at it from as well now. So a lot of the background footage is going to be me playing with at least one other friend, because, well, this is basically point one. It's just straight up more fun. And Battlefield 5 intensifies that with its reliance upon communication and team play. But I have also played a decent chunk of my early access time as a solo player, and I played a lot of Battlefield 1 on my own, as many of my subscribers will know. So I'm reasonably well positioned to comment upon how it feels to currently play BF5 solo in terms of how the vast majority will experience the game. If you want some form of context, I'm not a pro player, I'm not a top tier player or anything like that. BF1 was in fact my first Battlefield title, but I guess I'd be considered somewhere above average with currently a 3.3 KD and a fairly consistently high score. So you can maybe align the experience you're likely to have with that information in mind. And overall, I still had fun playing solo. It was harder, it could be frustrating, but overall it was enjoyable. But what's one of the main things that makes playing solo more difficult? Well, there's attrition, something that wasn't present in Battlefield 1. In BF5, you're much more reliant upon your allies for health and ammunition. But the main point really is health. You can no longer just regenerate back to full health by hiding somewhere. You only regain a certain percentage of health without using a medical pouch. So if you keep taking significant damage, it's not going to be too long before you're running around with low health. You do, however, spawn in with one med pouch, and you can go and get fresh meds and ammo from designated resupply stations, which are often on and around the capture points in a game mode such as Conquest. So yes, this does make it more difficult to play solo in random squads. You have no influence over how good or bad your teammates are going to be from an equipment usage standpoint, and randoms are much less likely to help you than your friends are, unless you've got, bad friends, but that's on you if that's the case. But this isn't to say that attrition is an impossibility to deal with. I'm finding it much more manageable than I did in the beta, likely due to the spawning in with a health pouch and just being more aware of where the resupply stations are and when I should be looking to go to them. If you focus upon that so you really get a good grasp of it, it'll help you no end. There will still be the argument from some people that it's not fun to have to go to these stations, and I'm not going to argue with that, as there's no point arguing with an opinion of what's fun and what isn't. And I did feel somewhat similarly in the beta, if I'm completely honest. But I do now feel like I'm having to go to these stations less than I did in the beta, which is definitely a good thing, and in fact just now feels like part of the tactical aspect of the game. So from my perspective with attrition, I'm currently pretty happy, but you again may have a different opinion. And to sum up those 2 points I've covered so far, it's more fun to play with friends, and attrition is easier to deal with when playing with friends, but it's not impossible to do solo, and it can be fun to lone wolf. So what else is there? Well, there's map design. It feels harder to push objectives solo now in some regards, although we must take into account that the maps are fresh for me, and thus I don't know them inside out like I did in BF1. But it does feel like more tactics and synchronized pushes are required, which isn't necessarily a bad thing of course, but playing on your own does complicate matters. I've seen it argued that perhaps there could be more ways to approach objectives, so players are somewhat less forced to take a set path and hope for the best. And I understand that. Only time will tell though, as the trial wasn't enough of an opportunity for me to analyze something as complex as that. And there is then the flip side. If you're a good and consistent shot, to the point that you're better at hitting the target than the majority of enemies you'll come up against, then in some regards this Battlefield title is better to solo play in than Battlefield 1, because the gunplay in this game relies more so on controlling your weapon and being accurate. Spread has much less of an impact, so basically if you can hit the target, you can get the kill. So you aren't at the mercy of spread in the same way now, and thus aren't at the same disadvantage of multiple enemies having a better percentage chance of hitting you via the RNG of spread mechanics, i.e. more people shooting means eventually someone will hit, versus one person shooting, they may well struggle. Now there is of course the argument that it works both ways, and accurate enemies can now punish solo players more, which is absolutely true, and that That's why I said this is for players with good consistent shots. And let's now round this whole thing out by mentioning revives. Revives are harder to pull off now, and thus it's also harder to be revived. You have to go through a whole animation now, and this punishes Rambo revivers even more so than before. The result being that when playing with an organized squad of people you trust, you can try to communicate as to what's a safe revive and what isn't. With randoms, you're often going to just be left to die, or your teammates will run up and die themselves, which causes you to die anyway. There isn't a whole lot you can do about this one. It's just a difficulty you're going to have to deal with on your own. So overall, I think that playing solo is harder in Battlefield 1, at least so far, but it's not dead. It's not as if you can't succeed on your own. You just have to be aware of and prepared for the fact that it's going to be a real challenge sometimes, and that's just the nature of the game. Obviously, there are many nuances of playing solo that I haven't covered, but these were the major impactful points that I feel affect lone wolfing, and I hope to give you a good overview of my opinion, as well as the kind of player I am and how my experience will or won't translate to yours. And do keep in mind, this is early access, the game isn't even fully out yet, so things can change at any point, and maybe lone wolfing will be even more viable, or perhaps even less viable at some point in the future. So let me know what you think of playing Battlefield 5 solo in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating would be very much appreciated. Subscribe if you're new around here, and turn on notifications with the bell button so you don't miss the huge amount of Battlefield 5 content that I'm going to be releasing. And then feel free to join the Discord server in the description and my pinned comment to potentially talk more with me and other people from the community, as well as maybe find people to play with. Now let's head over to the Board of Awesome for the epic people who support the channel on Patreon. That support helps me to do this every single day, so thanks to everybody on here. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, the links to the Patreon page is in the description and my pinned comment. And with that all said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters.